Madam Speaker, and thank you, Senator Manning, for another attempt to bring some sanity to a very insane piece of legislation. Honourable colleagues, how many times have we heard, time and time again, when concerns have been raised by digital content creators, by digital-first creators in this country? Trust us. Trust us. User-generated content is not included in this bill. How many times have we heard the minister, officials, government officials, sponsors of the bill come and say, trust us. Absolutely, platforms are in, users are out. But at every turn, government MPs on the House, the government in their Senate committee, they have done everything they can to not allow for any thresholds, to not allow in crystal black and white statements that clarify for the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Canadians who today are using the digital web as an opportunity to promote Canadian culture and have created outstanding businesses. And they're looking at this and they're saying what we've created is at the fate right now of the CRTC without any clarity in the bill. And Senator Deakin, you're absolutely right. We need to get rid of red tape in this country. We need to make things less complicated, and the best way to do it is to entrench those protections in the bill before it gets to the regulatory stage. Because if you think we're cutting through regulations by sending this problem to the CRTC and letting them consult for a year and come back to us with a list of regulations without guidelines being clarified now and here in order to alleviate the concerns of generated content producers in this country, I'm sorry, I'm not going to leave it to just a bunch of appointed individuals who, at the end of the day, if you read the Broadcasting Act, take their guidelines ultimately by the government. And they have complete power. And we've heard at our committee over many months the concerns of stakeholders, both in favor of the bill and those against the bill, that the CRTC has an atrocious record when it comes to consultation and transparency. And we also heard from many stakeholders, including large broadcasters, to navigate through the bureaucracy of the CRTC, you need deep pockets with a lot of lawyers on your payroll. So yes, I am, Senator Dawson, very excited and very stressed about this bill, more than I have in the past, because I'm concerned about the hundreds of thousands of Canadians and digital-first creators in this country who have come and pleaded with us for some sanity in the legislation. And they've asked to be excluded. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe Canadian culture is in peril or in risk. I think our committee has seen in the study over the last few months that Canadian culture is booming like never before. Actors are busier than ever before. Producers are busier than ever before. Directors, singers, songwriters, extras. Every region of the country is benefiting over the last decade. We've seen it by movie production companies, documentaries coming in and using Canada as a place in order to use our talent, our art, in order to propel that around the world. And the digital web has also given us a market we never dreamed of 30, 40 years ago when we were looking at this archaic Broadcasting Act and protecting the broadcasting industry. We have billions of people around the world that are just jumping on right now YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, on all these platforms, to look at our Indigenous talent, to look at our Francophone talent, and it's just thriving like never before. So with all due respect, I don't buy the argument that we need to protect them. You know who we need to protect and who this bill is protecting? It's only protecting one group of individuals, and that is the old broadcasting model that, colleagues, we all know has failed. In 2023, they're bankrupt. Bell Media's bankrupt. CBC's bankrupt. They're not making money. And they're not making money because they're outdated. And Canadians are not going to those platforms for their information anymore. Only old guys like me, old boomers, are sitting there watching the news on TV at night, and my 26 and 23-year-old walk by and laugh at me because they're streaming. Yes, they're on their iPads, they're on their phones, and I'm starting to realize they're getting information quicker than I am. And that's who I've relied on in order to draw my conclusions in regards to this bill. And I'll say this, that the traditional broadcasters can do somersaults and try to convince the government to throw more money in the Canadian Media Fund and to Telefilm Canada, change your model, because clearly I don't see any streamers rushing to become broadcasters. But we see every single broadcasting platform going digital over the last 10 years. The CBC has spent millions trying to go digital, CTV and all of them, because that's the way of the future. But we need to encourage Canadians and young Canadians to take advantage of that opportunity to continue to grow, not to hinder them by basically saying to the CRTC, create an even playing field. And I use that analogy. We have right now the digital world, a Lamborghini, and we have the traditional broadcasting world, a horse and cart. And we want to create an equal race. Well, unless you're going to give the horse and cart a 5-mile lead and make it a 5.1-mile race, I'm still betting on the Lamborghini. So we have to start being realistic when we say it's time to review our digital and broadcasting act and understand of the realities that we face today. And Senator Deakin, you mentioned about the fact that we need to make sure, again, you used that we have to protect our industry and make sure that, you know, we don't have foreign investors that come in and somehow hinder the marketplace. It's because of Netflix and Disney Plus and these foreign investors that we've had billions of dollars that have come into Canada, that we have our industry of artists busier than ever before. They're working, there's a shortage, they're making money, they're paying taxes to the revenue treasury board of this country. And by the way, all these streamers, bloggers, and independent content producers, they're paying a ton of taxes to the Canadian Media Fund. And under C11, who's going to benefit from that? And even to this day, who benefits? The traditional broadcasters dive into that money, continue to produce shows at taxpayers' expense that nobody watches. Do I need to pull out the ratings to let you know nobody's watching, for example, CBC anymore? But yet, the whole content of this bill, the whole point of this bill, is someone's making money and someone isn't, and I've decided the guys that aren't, there's a reason for it. I need to prop them up. Well, you can prop them up all you want. If the problem is your business model, you're going to die a slow, painful death. Right. And in our committee report, we had Indigenous witnesses come before the committee, thanks to Senator Klein, who fought hard to make sure that they were heard right till the end. And they said it best. Under these new platforms, we're getting Indigenous culture in this country spread to places like France, to South America, to all corners of the world like never before. And they pleaded to make sure that the CRTC and any element of the C11 bill that morphs into whatever, because we don't know what those regulations are going to be like, they said it word for word, please stay out of our way because we're being very successful. So why are we going to put in peril every single Canadian who right now is on these platforms? They have the liberty to express themselves. And by the way, they are dominating. We're punching above our weight. Every single witness that came before our committee made it evidently clear that Canada is punching above its weight when you look at our footprint in terms of arts and culture around the world. We're a small market. We need the world. We're not a trading country only in lumber and in agricultural goods and energy. We're a trading country in culture as well. As Senator Richards appropriately said, there's so many people that can buy books in Canada. But there's billions of people around the world that can buy Canadian authors and books that they like from Canadian, writers. Now, one of the biggest problems with this bill is the scope. And we have to broaden our scope. We have to think large as Canadians. I think I heard Senator Meville Duchesne speak about her amendment, and she pointed out that it would address threshold and it would address, for example, compel the CRTC, according to your amendment, to consider digital-first creators, correct? And one of the words in your amendment is to consider. Now, with all due respect, colleagues, when I amend the bill and I'm telling the CRTC, we see weaknesses, we recognize these weaknesses, and we want you to address these weaknesses in your deliberations and your regulations. And the amendment says, I want you to consider ABC. Consider is not very prescriptive. We all know how the CRTC works. They're going to consider it all right. They're going to hear the hearings, and they're going to report as usual. It's not very binding. So we have fought very hard to put forward amendments with some teeth to protect content producers that are small players. that are living off their small stream of revenue, independent Canadian content producers. Now, a $10 million threshold is the bare minimum to allow some protection in a concrete way and put it entrench it in the bill so that CRTC has no moverability than to accept that reality. And the only conclusion I come to is why there's such pushback from the government is because at the end of the day, with all due respect, I just don't believe when the government says that platforms are in and independent digital content producers are out. I don't believe them. I'm sorry. There's nothing, if you're not going to accept the threshold of 100 million, 50 million, 10 million, why would I believe you're going to accept any threshold on goodwill? How many of you are going to go and buy a product and in the contract, everything is highlighted there except the delivery date? How many of you would accept that? You say, can you just put the delivery? No, trust us, you're going to get it by February the 1st. Well, yeah, but can we just put it in the contract? No, just trust us. So please, colleagues, let's, at bare minimum, accept this reasonable amendment that will give a little bit of hope to those young, multiple Canadians across this country that are just hoping that there's some clarity and some security so that they continue to promote their culture and their business in a fair and in a free market way. Thank you, colleagues.